Applejack Corner sat in the corner eating his Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and purred.
Hi, my name is Betsy Brownlee, and I'm the Children's Librarian at the Oconomowoc Public Library in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. I hope you enjoy this video of interviews with teachers, parents, and booksellers all about the importance of reading to babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. I hope you'll be inspired to read aloud to a young child today.
Sure, my name is Rachel. My husband and I, Jason, have two kids. Dante, who soon will be 6, and Maya, who is almost a year old.
When did you start sharing books with your kids?
Since they were born. You know, we were in the hospital with Dante for 2 weeks, and that was one of the things my husband brought. And we sat in his little incubator and we read to him. And Maya as well. We shared books with her as soon as she was born.
What inspired you to read to your child when they were very young?
I went to college for education and taught for 10 years, and the importance of reading and the value of reading to kids is just amazing for their development and their learning curves and their vocabulary and just their experiences.
So reading is its own reward, of course, but what other rewards has reading brought to your child? Maybe school success or easier time picking up reading skills, all those things?
For Dante, I think just knowing that he loves books, and so when he went to school, you know, part of the reader's workshop now in school is just being able to sit with their book bins and look through books. And I told his teachers right away, I'm like, Dante has the stamina of probably a first grader or second grader as a beginning kindergartner to just sit and look at books. He will sit and look and look and look and look. And so that was something that I think a reward for him, you know, not necessarily reading the words on the page or anything like that as a kindergartner, but, you know, he went to school being comfortable and confident in that area, so it was something that, you know, he could feel successful at as part of his school day from the start and not have to worry about building up stamina as some of the other kids might need to do at that age.
And did you have any challenges when reading to your kids, like a limited amount of time or a child's attention span? And if you did, how did you address those challenges?
We've had more challenges with Maya, just reading to her, because I find that I'm reading older books to Dante, and I'm like, oh, she still needs the little books, and I forget how short her attention span is compared to his, because she's only 11 months now, and he's almost 6 years. It's where we came from with Dante, you know. So it's always when we have both of them, her books don't always hold his attention span. So she gets to listen to his books a lot, which is good. But I'm finding that I have to make sure I'm reading her books to her as well, not just reading his books, his level books to her, so that I make sure that she's getting the vocabulary and the picture interest and things like that are more towards her level.
Yeah.
So finding that balance.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have a number one tip for other parents who want to read to their children?
I would just say have books around everywhere. I find that, you know, if they're not near you, like anything else, it just takes that much more time to go get it and to come back. Like, just having them around has made it easier for us to just continue reading to him all the time.
It's on the wrong page. When did you start sharing books with your daughter?
We started reading to Sammy before she was born. That started to be our bedtime ritual, where we would read either the magazines we were interested in or whatever book we were reading at the time, and we would read aloud.
Wow, I love that. Oh, how cool is that? So you just read whatever you were reading as an adult, you would just read to her.
And then as we progressed with the pregnancy, we picked up books, children's books for her, and we would read and practice to make sure we had everything in there.
How did you read your books? Did you read, she read? Where did you sit? How many books at a time would you share?
It was a combination of both. Obviously, when Sammy was real little, she couldn't read. But as she started learning words, and it's a great activity for her to just open up a book and tell a story. It may not be the exact story that the book is about, but looking at the pictures, looking at the characters. So it's a great tool to build her imagination. On the couch, sometimes just on the porch, anywhere, we would read to her.
Great. And what is your favorite part of sharing books with Sammy?
watching how much she enjoys it. It's real good family time. When you read to your child, it's one-on-one or two-on-one, since there's 3 of us in the family, and it's just family time. It's uninterrupted time that you spend with your child.
And do you have like a number one tip if you were talking to another parent who really wants to get started reading to their child, or to feel more comfortable or confident about their reading to their child? Do you have a tip for that parent?
Well, my first tip would be to make it a priority. Make sure you do it every day, whenever you can. And sometimes little children's books are very short, very sweet, so you can read to them whenever you can. And it doesn't matter if, how you read it. It's just the children will know that you're spending time with them, and it's quality time. And that's so important.
My name is Abby Janowicz, and my daughter is 3 years old, and my son is 2.
What inspired you to read to your kids when they were very little?
Well, selfishly, I read to them because I love reading picture books to my kids. It was a trying beginning to motherhood for me because my daughter was colicky, and that moment of reading the book with her was a really positive experience for both of us. But I also know that there's so much research that shows how important it is to read to kids and expose them to language and the rhythm of stories at a very young age.
What was your child's, or what is your child's, because your kids are still pretty little, what was your child's favorite book or author?
Okay, this is a really exciting question for me. So I could not come to this interview without some of my very favorites, which I'm going to try to quickly share with you. Anything by Lisa Mosier. She is an author who lives in Wisconsin. One of our absolute favorite picture books of all time is Railroad Hank. We love another Wisconsin author, Pat Zietlow Miller. Her book Sophie Squash is truly one of the best picture books I have ever read. Both of my kids had A Sick Day for Amos Vicky basically memorized by the time they were 2. We could not live without this book. We love Ashley Wolf, Baby Bear Sees Blue, and Baby Bear Counts 1. Jonathan Bean, Big Snow, is one of our absolute favorite. There's a picture of his mother vacuuming snow that gets blown into the living room in his dream, and my kids just love it. We love classics like Harry and the Dirty Dog. Now that we got a dog, we read this one all the time. We love the Little Blue Truck series. We love anything by Karen Beaumont, especially Where's My Truck or Baby Dance the Polka. And then we love books that are interactive, like Tuesday, or Have You Seen My New Blue Socks, or Monster Be Good. These books are incredibly personal to me. They have become part of our very beings. I've come to the conclusion actually that I parent with picture books. We have books that we read in the morning, books that we read at lunch, books that we read at bedtime, books for when we are happy, for when we're scared, for when we're excited. They teach us things, our numbers, our colors, what it means to be a creative, strong child, and there are books that help us better understand our world and ourselves. There are certain books for certain times, for moods, for events, and not just any book will do, and we are really passionate about these ones that I just showed you.
Sure, I'm Robin Wilson. I'm the principal at Summit Elementary.
What have you noticed about students who have been read to a lot in the home? For example, kids who are more ready to learn to read, have more interest in books, maybe higher academic achievement or larger vocabulary, things like that?
Sure. Well, there's a definite difference that we see in children who have been read to a lot at home. One thing that I think parents need to keep in mind as their child enters school, whether it's in 4K or 5K, is that there's a wide spectrum of readiness that we see in children. And we have some children coming into kindergarten that are already reading, and we have some children coming into kindergarten that are not really ready to engage in print yet that way, and they will be just fine as readers as they continue to progress. So I think reading to your child is a beautiful way to nurture your child's literacy development while also honoring their developmental readiness. For children who are read to, even if they're not at a point where they're ready to decode print yet, we certainly see a marked difference in their understanding of a sense of story, that things have a beginning and a middle and an end, their ability to organize information and sequence information. They typically have attention spans that are a bit longer. Reading is kind of the anti-screen time, and that it develops a student's ability to be able to attend.
Robin, do you have a favorite book or author to recommend for parents of babies, toddlers, or preschoolers?
Oh gosh, there are so many. Thankfully, there is no shortage of good authors, but some that certainly stand out for preschoolers and very young children are Sandra Boynton and all of her books. The sense of rhyme and the sense of humor that she has in her books, kids just love. They're highly engaging and entertaining, and many of them, and they become favorites quickly.
Great. Could you tell me a little bit about who is in your family?
It is myself and my husband and my daughter Sophia, who just turned 6.
Nice. And how long have you been reading to Sophia?
I would say since she's been born. Yeah, we started very early. I remember bringing her home, and we got a nursery rhyme book, and that's kind of like how my husband started kind of like interacting with her, because as a child, or as a baby, as an infant, it's hard to have conversation, obviously. So to kind of get the, having conversation with her and talking to her, we just started to read.
What is your child's favorite book or author?
That's the nice thing, is that there really isn't a favorite. She loves all books. I mean, I try to get them as far as what she's interested in. Like right now, it's Disney princesses. So we try to find books that she can read and that we can read to her as well. So it's been a wide range. I mean, she doesn't get stuck on one book, which is great. Sometimes we get books from the library and once through is enough. Sometimes she likes to read them a little bit more often. But, there isn't really a favorite.
Yeah, that's great. Could you talk a little bit about how it looks when you're reading? Do you read? Does she read? Where are you sitting? Like, how does it look?
We have a reading room in our house,
Oh,
which is, cause it used to be it was supposed to be a dining room, but we put it as a reading room, and we put bookshelves in there, and it's where we put our books, and there's a little love seat in there, so that's where we read. So it's called the reading room. Now that she can read, she likes to just kind of find different spots in the house. She likes to read to Daddy when he's home, because she doesn't often get to do that. So when she reads, it's kind of in different spots, but at night when we read, it's always in the reading room.
How many books do you usually read at a time when you're reading?
I would say it probably was, when she was younger, it was probably an average of like 3 to 4 when we would sit down and read. But now, because of the length of the books getting a little bit longer, it's maybe 1, because that's.
And how do you read books? Do you read, or does she read to you?
So in the beginning, we read, of course, because she couldn't read, but we pointed a lot. We sounded out words, and I always pointed out to the words so she could see those things. She became a quick learner of like signs and places when we would go. So from the reading, she got symbols very quickly, and at just before 2 years old, could actually read words in things. So we saw that very fast. So.
Great. What is your favorite part of sharing books with Milena?
I think the reward of the quality time that you get. I mean, they snuggle in with you and get real in close. And then when you see, I mentioned before about the sign language, you see your words actually coming back to you.
Let's see, reading is its own reward, of course, but what other rewards has reading brought your child, such as school success or having an easier time learning to read?
Milena's actually, she's done very well with, because of our reading, I think. I mentioned before, she became aware of things easier, and symbols and those things, has always found it easier than I ever did. I didn't get read to like she has, and I think that it's created her an easier adjustment to letters, sounds, shapes, those things.
And do you have any challenges when reading to Milena, like limited time or attention span, and how did you address any challenges?
So I would say that the biggest challenge is as they get older, they want to move around more. So we shortened up our reading time, and we did it in chunks. So we would do 10-minute sections or 8 books, and then I would incorporate saying, after this we're going to do this, but we need to read 8 books first. And then we would count out the books as well. So we made it fun that we were doing 2 things at once.
And what is your number one tip for other parents on reading to their child?
My number one tip would be try it. When you do it, you'll experience those same great things I have, the bonding time, and then your rewards of your hard work paying off. So I would just say, try it, you'll love it.
Bob.
My name is Kim Bazinski, and I teach first grade at Meadowview Elementary School.
Great. Kim, could you share any stories or patterns you've noticed about students who have been read to a lot at home?
Students who have been read to a lot at home seem to come to school with a lot in their literacy backpack. They have a higher vocabulary. You can tell that they can have great conversations about books and they're willing to share things with their friends.
Do you have any tips for parents who want to read more to their little ones?
I always tell my kids that it's important to have reading as part of your routine. It's just like brushing your teeth. It's something you should be doing every day. So making it part of your nightly routine, taking a bath, brushing your teeth, and reading to your children, and then putting them to bed. It can be part of your routine, and then you can be doing that every single day.
Kim, do you have a favorite book or author to recommend for parents of babies, toddlers, or preschoolers?
I would say any book that has rhyming in it, any book by Eric Carle that has bright pictures. Dr. Seuss has a bunch of great rhyming books. Any books that have songs, those all seem very interesting for kids who are younger.
Cool. When do you read to your child? Or children, I should say.
When?
Yeah, when?
Well, ever since they were really young, we just established like books at bedtime routine, and it's just stuck. So, you know, we get pajamas on, we brush our teeth, and then we cuddle. Now that they have bigger beds, we can lay in their beds with them, or rock with them in the rocking chairs. But yeah, so definitely at night, and then anytime we have, you know, a few minutes here or there throughout the day, they'll bring books over to us and ask us to read. And
Yeah, a lot of times just on the couch, you know, bedtime is a special time, but on the couch, just like on a Saturday, have one child on either side of me, and I'll be reading a book, and they'll just listen, and it's so much fun. The biggest transition I've seen lately is they want to read to us, whereas before we would be reading to them almost every time, and now it's the roles are switching.
What is your favorite part, or both of you, your favorite part about reading books with your child?
I think my favorite part of reading with them is the quiet time, just having one-on-one or just two-on-one with no technology around. There's so many things on TV and the iPad and all the tablet type stuff. The books allow us just to be bonding together, and you know, they really listen to what we're reading about. It's quality time more than anything.
That's great.
yeah, very similar for me too. And I love the questions that they're asking now, and we're able to have conversations about, you know, the plot and the characters and what's happening, and that's been a transition too. That's been fun to be more engaging with them.
Yeah. Did you have any challenges when reading to the girls at all about, like, I don't know, attention span, or having a hard time like squeezing it in the day at all? And how did you address those challenges, if you had any?
I'd say time is always an issue. I mean, you can never have enough time. But I guess for us, just like I said before, establishing that routine at bed. So that's just, we know that at bedtime they're always going to get books read to. So if we don't have time throughout the day, we know that it's coming at bedtime. So
I think it's a lot about balance and carving out a certain time slot in the day, because our days are so hectic. Like most people, you know, people are busy, they work, you have grocery runs, you have, you know, other needs during the day, and you know, oftentimes as the kids grow up, they're able to do things on their own, but taking that special time to read with them is really, really important.
And we have books, you know, throughout the house, and now they can independently do it too, read on their own, you know, pretend read. And yeah, so just providing books throughout their play areas too.
Yes.
My name is Ann Serafin, and I teach 4K at Summit Elementary in Oconomowoc School District.
Great. How long have you been teaching?
This is my 6th year here.
Nice, great. And what have you noticed about students who have been read to a lot in the home? By the time they come to your 4K classroom, what do you notice about those kids?
The number one thing that I notice is their enthusiasm towards books. You know, they'll come into the classroom, and let's say I'm working on dinosaurs. They're the first kids to come to the reading corner and say, oh, she put out all the dinosaur books. Also, they have a little bit more background knowledge. You know, we can't go back in the land of dinosaurs, so just being able to read books about dinosaurs, they can really pretend that they were there. I always say, like, reading a book is going on a field trip.
Do those kids have an easier time learning the actual reading, like the letters and the letter sounds and all those things?
Most of the time they do. Sometimes they're just not developmentally ready for learning the letters. You know, they still see them as lines and sticks and balls, but a lot of times they come in with those letter recognition and letter sound correlation skills a little bit early. We call them the pre-academic skills.
Great. Thank you. Do you have any stories you could share that you remember of a student who had been read to a lot at home?
And then also during our readers workshop time where the kids read to a partner or read to a friend or read to other kids in the class, we have these pointers that they can use, and I find them being the leader during that time as well. So they're not necessarily reading the words, but reading the pictures in the story, and kind of have a little crowd around them while they're reading the story. So
Wow.
that's pretty cute.
That is great. Do you have any tips for parents who want to read more to their little ones?
You know, my number one tip is just to find books of interest. So for example, if the children are interested in Thomas, find all the train books that you can find. You know, I definitely recommend anything that's high interest. So for example, the movie Frozen is out right now, so I went and got tons of Frozen books to put in the reading corner for the children to look at. And then again, come and running through the doors, excited to look at those new books.
That is great. And why should people read to their young kids and babies?
I guess my number one reason would be that it really helps build their love for reading. The kids that are being read to before they come to school, they're excited to get into new books, and then it helps throughout their elementary career. They're just looking for new things to read, their interests keep growing, and then they academically, things come a little bit easier if they have that love for reading. Also, I guess this would also be a number one, but that one-on-one time with your child, it just gives you a chance to bond. I love sitting with my boys. I have 2 boys that actually go to Summit as well, and I love sitting with them on their beds and having them read to me and me read to them. And I have a kindergartner who is at the stage where he's reading the pictures and just beginning to read the words, and we just love that time together.
Do you have a favorite book or author to recommend for parents of babies, toddlers, or preschoolers?
I really think with the babies and the toddlers, any nursery rhyme books, or books that have songs that they're familiar with, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Mary Had a Little Lamb. For the older kids, they just love the Elephant and Piggy books. Those are by Mo Willems. They love the characters' expressions. They really love predicting and making inferences about what things that are going to happen next. Also the Dr. Seuss books. They really, really, really enjoy the rhyming in these stories. So that's another favorite.
Could you share your name and your place of employment, please?
I'm Lisa Ann from Books and Company in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
And I'm Lisa B. from Books and Company in Oconomowoc, and I am the owner, and Lisa is a bookseller. Well, I'm a bookseller too.
Why should people read to their babies and young children?
Well, there's all those studies that say, longer attention span, better vocabulary, all the benefits when they get older. And all those things are true and good reasons, but I really think the most important is just to develop that bond and have that special time with your child.
And yet, to quote more studies, they've shown that people that read for pleasure are happier. And I think just setting that practice and getting in the habit of taking time every day to sit and read for pleasure and get the joy out of it is a lifelong sort of almost guarantee that you're going to have something there with you. It's a good companion to give your child early on.
Could you tell us about your teaching background?
Sure. I taught kindergarten for 10 years. I taught 6 years in Verona outside of Madison, and then I taught 4 years in Heartland, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Great. And when you were a teacher, what did you notice about students who had been read to a lot in the home versus students who hadn't been read to as much at home?
Sure. Yeah, the students that didn't have as many opportunities for books prior to coming to kindergarten, I could really tell that we needed to start with more of the basics about books, like concepts about print, where the front of the book is, the back of the book, the difference between a picture and a word, knowing that print goes left to right, those kinds of, beginning book basic things. Whereas kids that had opportunities for books in the home were ready for for actual skills, for like beginning to blend sounds together to read words, comprehension questions, having conversations about books, relating it to their own life, those kinds of extension beyond just knowing the basics of books. They were ready for those kinds of skills.
Do you have any tips for parents who want to read more to their little ones?
Just do it.
Yeah, again, speaking from my kindergarten teaching experience, the parents that had read to their kids prior to starting school, they were that much further ahead. And I would always tell parents too, just to have environmental print around the house too. I could really tell that that really impacted children coming to kindergarten. For example, like if they're playing with Legos, have the box of toys labeled with Legos, where they can start to associate the letter L for the beginning sound with Legos. And I would also tell parents, like when you're at the grocery store, point out words and point out pictures and point out beginning letters where they can really start to make that association, not just in books, but in their everyday world.